In today's world, older adults face major transitions like downsizing, relocating, or modifying their homes to age in place, all while embracing life after these changes. As a senior home advisor and seasoned realtor, Robin McCoy guides these decisions with care and thoughtful planning, helping create a vibrant future. Welcome to Relax, I Got This, Embracing Life After 60 with me, your host, Robin McCoy. We are in a crisis in this country when it comes to our brain health. There's an increasing number of memory care units, and the cost just keeps escalating year after year. What if I were to tell you there is a way to, if not slow down, maybe even reverse some of the symptoms and the effects of these different brain diseases that are out there? So my guest today, Dr. David Ajibade, also known as Dr. David, is a U.S.-based physician and visionary health educator. He is a U.S.-based physician and visionary health educator whose work bridges continents, advancing brain health, holistic wellness, and public health strategies across Nigeria and the United States. His mission is to prevent cognitive decline, empower individuals and healthcare professionals, and promote longer, healthier lives through evidence-informed care and education. He is the creator of the Building Strength approach, a method that focuses on enhancing the brain's natural ability to heal, repair, and recover using targeted nutraceuticals and neurosupportive interventions. I am so excited for this conversation, and it's one that everybody needs to hear. Welcome to Dr. David. Dr. David, thank you so much for taking some time on the show today. I was really intrigued by the information that you shared with us on that mastermind call the other day, and I'm excited that you agreed to be with us today.
Well, thank you for having me.
So in that call, so for those of you that know me, you know I'm on a lot of different mastermind calls, and we do one in the mornings, and Dr. David was a guest that he was talking about brain health and how we can manage our brain health, and why we are in such, we're in a crisis, I think, in this country and across the world. And I was just thrilled that he wanted to come on my little old show and talk to us. Give us a little bit of your background and kind of how this came to be and how you became so interested in this.
Well, thank you for having me again, Robin. Yeah, my interest in brain health and really is about human potential. I've always been, even though I've been a physician for close to 30 years now, I've always been interested in human potential, how to optimize or maximize the abilities that we have, whether it's mentally, physically, even spiritually. And that took me on a journey that many people would think would consider very, very, very weird for a doctor. So we're probably not going to.
We like weird on this show. We like weird.
So okay, good. I'm glad you do. So I mean, it's only like you know how they say hindsight is 20/20. Mm-hmm. So I'm looking back and I'm seeing the dots connect now, but when I was going through it, it wasn't so. But let me rewind to just 10 years ago. I started a foundation called the Brain and Body Foundation, and the reason behind that was because I saw so many kids in Nigeria suffering, especially from low-income families. They were suffering from things like cerebral palsy, genetic conditions like Down syndrome, injuries, physical abuse, and they had nowhere else to go. All they had were the physical therapy departments in the government hospitals, which were pretty much free. But one could tell that they weren't really making much progress. So we decided to step in as a foundation and begin to give them nutrients, because I know a little bit about how nutrients can help to repair and rehabilitate the brain. And so we felt that by giving them these nutrients, at that time we only had omega-3s, very high potency, high quality omega-3s. We've since then we've vastly expanded our repertoire or our arsenal, but then it was also omega-3s, and the omega-3s alone did so much good that it really got us to start thinking about what else, that if something as simple as an omega-3 could help what else was out there that was could help to repair the brain. And basically, we grew from just addressing kids with brain disorders all the way to addressing adults with strokes, Parkinson's disease, obviously dementia, then PTSD, and so on. So right now we treat the whole spectrum of brain health conditions, including mental health conditions as well. And bottom line is that whatever the condition, if one is basically there's something going on either with the structure or the function of the brain, and if you can support or nourish or nurture or nurse the brain back to health, it will in turn fix the problems that are ailing it. And I just don't think in medical field we paid attention to that as we should, and I'm hoping that we can change that.
Well, it seems like, and I may be making this up, but it seems like when we were in school, like way back when, we were told that, wasn't it the brain cells are the ones that don't rejuvenate. So once you hurt your brain,
that's it.
Sorry, there's no going back. Are we seeing that may not be true?
Some people are still holding on to that old belief, and I do think it's an old belief. Yes, the brain can repair itself, it can regenerate, it can produce new brain cells, and as a matter of fact, every single day the brain is producing new brain cells. Now, obviously, as you grow older, that capacity begins to wane, but till your dying day, your brain is producing new brain cells, and there are ways you can increase or enhance that capacity. So absolutely, I just don't understand why we want to insist on the brain not being able to do what it can do.
Yeah. Well, and that's I guess that's a lot of just the medical thought here especially, I think, in the United States, that could be worldwide, that we need to have medicines, not just maybe the foods that we eat and like you say, the nutrients we take in. We know that much of the food that we eat that's grown today is over processed, the soil's depleted, the nutrients that used to come out of the ground don't anymore. And so that's got to be missing in our makeup, right? Because we were designed and built to have certain nutrition and certain aspects into our body to make all this work.
Yeah.
Am I right?
Well, absolutely. That's a key. You hit on a key point. We simply are not getting enough nutrients in our food. And I hear doctors insist on, well, you don't need to take any supplements. You can have a balanced diet and you'll be fine. And if you really ask them what a balanced diet is, I mean, who even knows what a balanced diet is?
Yeah.
Let's be frank.
Yeah.
What really is a balanced diet? But here's the thing, Robin.
Yeah.
Even with a balanced diet, quote unquote, there are a lot of things that are going on now. Unless you have it totally organic, and it's not GMO, it's all natural and maybe raised in your garden, and the meat you eat is also not processed, or it's not the animals are not fed things like just corn,
right,
grass and so on. Unless you can control all that, what the food you're eating is compromised in several different ways. So besides that, even if it weren't, there are nutrients that your body cannot get from food alone. A perfect example is vitamin D.
Okay.
Most foods simply do not have enough vitamin D to sustain you. It has to be gotten from exposure to the sun, from skin. And I say this with tears in my eyes, because we black people are particularly prone to this, and we black people are the ones who run away from the sun the most.
I kind of run too, but
it's one of the greatest mysteries I've seen. I mean, we need it the most.
Yeah.
Yet we hide from it the most. And it is costing us dearly. And yes, I know other races too, kind of, obviously with white people, especially those who are pale and don't tan easily. I mean, there's a greater risk of skin cancer, but that doesn't apply in black people at all. I started my career in radiation oncology, treating cancer patients. We never treated anybody with skin cancer. None.
Really?
Zero.
Really?
The only people we had that came to get treated for skin cancer were what you would call the albinos, who did not have, I hope that's not a derogatory term, but who did not have melanin. So part of the
Right.
genetic thing is that they don't produce enough melanin. And melanin is like a natural sunblock. So
Okay.
because they
Yeah.
lacked the protection of melanin, their skin was easily damaged by the
Right.
sun, and that's why they had skin cancer. Other than those, I never ever saw a black person with skin cancer. I'm not saying it doesn't exist; it is
Right.
typically rare. But for some reason, whether it's deep in our psyche or whatever it is, I've heard different reasons. I mean, I've heard colorism. I just heard that 2 years ago. I didn't know what that meant. And I've heard, well, we were slaves, so we've worked out in the plantations long enough, so we don't want to be out in the sun again. I mean, I've heard all kinds
All
of.
kinds of them, right?
But
Pick one.
bottom
But
line is that we're not getting enough vitamin D. I think you can't
not
get
of vitamin D, and it's not in the food.
it's not in the food.
Just by naturally, vitamin D doesn't come from the foods we eat
It comes, but in very, very
in
low
small
amount.
amounts.
It's not enough to sustain what we need.
So what else are we missing? So what are all the, you had I can't remember what you called it now, but there was like a list of the things that we are missing that can greatly improve our overall health, but in particular our brain health, that we're just not getting in a, like you said, quote unquote, balanced diet.
Yeah. So, well, it depends on what we're talking about. Well, so when I talk to women, I point out certain nutrients that tend to be lacking
Okay.
compared to men, which is one of the reasons why women have twice the rate of dementia as men do. It's not the only reason, but it's certainly a factor. So we talk vitamin D. Women are more deficient in vitamin D because it's fat soluble. It's fat soluble. Women tend to have more fat in their bodies, so vitamin D tends to be sequestered in fat. Also, obviously, iron, especially in your 40s and 50s, because of the monthly periods. Also, the high protein sources, because women tend to be more vegetarian than men. They tend to eat less meat, and some of the most important nutrients, especially amino acids for the brain, amino acids and fats and healthy fats for the brain tend to be found only in animal products.
Okay.
So, because of women's predilection for vegetable or less fatty foods, they're missing out on these nutrients that can help to support the brain. Now, no one's telling them about it. Another nutrient that obviously can be found in plant foods are the vitamin B12. Is vitamin
Hmm.
B12 extremely important? And if we keep going down the list, you'll see a lot of things. Now, having said that, there are also nutrients that your body loses that is leached out of your body because you're eating certain foods. So, for example, if you're eating a high starch, high carbohydrate meal, what happens, and I mentioned this on the call with Catherine, if you're eating a high carbohydrate rich meal, what happens is that the body has to process the starch and the glucose that comes out of the starchy foods. And one of the key nutrients to process that carbohydrates, that glucose, is vitamin B1. Where it's just now coming into prominence, but it is vital to process starchy foods, but it's also vital for brain function. And so, if all your B1 is being diverted towards dealing with glucose, you're not going to have enough B1 to help with in terms of maintaining and repairing and improving and brain function. So that is one of the reasons that people tend to. I've almost never heard anybody talk about it, but it's a very, very important factor in this overall brain health situation.
We Are One Heart is a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to bridging the gap between the needs and resources of low income seniors and veterans. Rooted in compassion and love, our mission is to provide housing, living assistance, and access to critical resources that ensure dignity and support for the elderly in underserved communities. At the heart of We Are One Heart's work is the belief that every individual shares a common humanity, a heart connected through love and care. We are committed to creating a future that honors those who have shaped the past by offering programs and services that enhance their quality of life. For more information or to donate, visit WA1HH.org. wa1h.org. That's WA, the number one, H.org. So, how do we, and I would imagine too, women going through, just especially a menopausal woman, right? So your body changes, and first of all, you mentioned, the periods that we have, which has a lot of, takes a lot of the iron and all of that, so we need to supplement that. But I would imagine after menopause as well, then all of a sudden, your body's changing again. And I would imagine that affects a lot of the nutrient absorptions and things like that. Am I?
Yeah, there's a whole variety of things that happen, especially with the decline in the hormonal levels, especially with estrogen and progesterone. That also affects the way energy is produced, and energy is generated in the brain and body. Um, I'm just trying to see if there's any other specific nutrients that are lost as a result of that menopause. Let me
Well, and
think
it just seems that it happens. Or, dementia and things like that seem to come about later in life. I mean, you hear of early onset and things like that, but it seems like it's an older person's disease.
Yep.
So at some, at what, I guess, how do we stop it? I don't know what I'm asking. How do we, at a younger age, try and ensure or make sure that that doesn't happen to us when our body is going to be changing anyway?
Yeah.
It's just very confusing.
Well, it's a great question, and I love the definition the Alzheimer's Association has. It says it has something. It says it's complex brain changes that occur as a result of cellular damage that happen over a period of time, usually decades. And basically, I'll just give you a quick overview of what happens. And I think you mentioned Dementia&Dirty Dozen, the ebook I have, where we highlight about 12 pathways to dementia. And basically, we're looking at things like illnesses, things like diabetes, things like cardiovascular disease. Also, it includes infections. Believe it or not, COVID-19. There's been an uptick in dementia as a result of COVID-19. There could be injuries, trauma, whether it's physical or mental trauma. There could be autoimmune conditions, which affect women more than men do, more than it affects men. There could be digestive problems and so on. So basically, usually from what I've seen, it's a combination, it's a pylon of different factors that are not either they're not well treated or the body just doesn't, or the body overreacts to them, and over time it just keeps on piling on and piling on and piling on because it's not well treated. Like the people, they don't, the nutrition aspect or the functional medicine aspect is not addressed, and so the brain just begins to lose. Let's put it this way: so that continual damage and trying to repair the damage, it goes on for decades and decades and decades until finally the brain just says enough.
I've had it.
And it begins to, yeah, I've had it. So it begins to shut itself down, kind of like the way the leaves shrink back and they pull back after a while just to conserve energy. And what happens, we're seeing is that when the brain energy levels dip to less than 50%, you have what is known as MCI, or mild cognitive impairment. And then when it dips to 40%, we're talking about full-blown dementia. That's what we're seeing now. But it all has to do with, as all these things are happening that we mentioned, and the brain is trying to adjust to it or trying to recover, energy levels are beginning to dip and dip. And you're getting older, by the way. As you get older, brain's energy levels naturally decline.
Right.
So it's like I said, it's a multifactorial thing, but eventually it dips. I feel this is really what doctors need to be aware of. They need to be aware of that energy decline and know what to do to counteract that, like you said. And and the way we know how to counteract is by being aware of all these different factors that can bring down the brain's energy levels or that can affect the brain adversely, and treating them preemptively or proactively. And we can't just leave it to doctors alone. That's why I love what you're doing, because we want to also reach the lay people directly. Lay people, I didn't say lay people, did I? Lay people directly, and equip them with the knowledge and the tools they need to do to take care of their brain health in their own lives, rather than just waiting for them to go and see the doctor. We cannot afford that anymore. We have
Yeah,
to,
I would say, we wait until something's wrong.
yeah,
I think mom, I think dad, I think myself, we're not, I think there's something not right. But now this is something we should have been paying attention to 10 years before.
correct.
But we don't do that. Because I would imagine, too, since we are living longer, right? As human beings on the planet, we're living longer than we ever did.
Yeah.
And so we don't know what happens necessarily to brains that are 80, 90 years old. And as our nutrition has depleted over the years, and now we're living longer, I would imagine we've missed the boat or something. We missed a chunk of information that we needed to maybe have prevented some of this, dementia crisis and things like that I feel like we're in.
Well, I don't think we can say we've missed the boat, because in my experience, it's never too late. There's so much you can do, and I have patients who are very far gone in their 80s, and we've been able to pull them back from the brink. Somewhat.
Really?
Yes.
Really? So somebody that has active dementia, whichever kind that might be, because I know there's everything's not Alzheimer's, and Alzheimer's isn't just dementia.
Correct.
So there's many varieties of that. But somebody could be in an active dementia situation, and you can bring them back from that.
We see that every day.
Really?
It's not. Yeah,
That's not even rare. So I mean, you're looking at me like piece of cake. It's like it's not even a rare thing.
When I first came to Baltimore, which I would go to visit a professor or something, and when they hear about my work, and they'll say things like, "Well, you can't prevent dementia," and I'll be like, "What?" I mean, when I first heard it once, I was like, I thought I was hearing things, and then I heard it a few more times. I was like, realized these people really believe it. And then, of course, I've always heard that you cannot treat Alzheimer's. There's no treatment, there's no cure, there's no way to slow it down. You can just help manage the decline,
right,
and make the patient as comfortable as possible. And I believe that in my career initially, and that's why I brought up what I do with kids. Because it was only when we started getting these results with kids that we knew things, that we realized that maybe what we were taught is not the actual facts, or not the actual facts.
Imagine that, right? What we were taught is not actually the truth or the reality. I won't say it's maybe the truth, but it's not the reality.
Yeah, I would agree with you. Maybe that's not the reality, because we were seeing. I mean, and this didn't take months, as they would say it should take here. We're seeing turnarounds within weeks.
Really?
Within weeks. And so, like I said, with kids, and then so when we started applying with adults, obviously they needed more doses, they needed more intensive or higher doses, more intensive treatment. But nevertheless, we were seeing results within days. I remember, and I didn't. Most of my patients are virtual. I don't even get to see them. I'm basically dealing with the caregiver, whether it's the spouse or the daughter or the whatever it is. I have this example in the UK. I was speaking to his wife, and so what we did, they reached out to me. Someone had told them about me, and so I bought all the nutrients and nutraceuticals that he would need based on our interaction and based on the lab reports. Shipped them over to the UK, which is really, really expensive. And we got treatment. We started treatment, and within a week, I spoke to her. Within a week, one of the things that she had complained about was that he would have. So this was really bad. I mean, a later stage. His white nurse would walk into the room, and he would speak to her in Yoruba, which is my language. Of course, the white nurse does not understand Yoruba. Then his wife would come in, and instead of speaking Yoruba to her, he would speak English to her. And then he'll be watching TV, and then he'll be reacting to the people in the TV as if they were speaking to him, and so he'll have an argument with them. So it was like you talk about the wires crossing, right?
Right.
Like it was just inappropriate.
Yeah.
Well, and I got to tell you, within less than a week, she was calling me and said all that had reversed. I mean, he was speaking English to his nurse, speaking Yoruba to his wife, and enjoying his TV programs all within less than a week.
That's incredible.
So yeah, it's but what's happening is it's not the fact that oh we've got great treatments. It's really about the brain having the capacity to do what it needs to do to fix itself. It just needs the tools. It needs the environment. It needs the resources to do what it needs to do. And many times we neglect to give it the resources it requires.
Well, how do we know what, I mean, because no two people are the same.
Right.
How do we, is it a blood test? Tell me what's, what I'm coming up short. I mean, how do we know? What is it that if I'm low on D, but I'm fine on iron and how do we know what we're lacking so that we can make sure our brain is always working to its best ability?
All right. So that's a great question. And only somebody in the Western world can ask that kind of question. Because you have the luxury
Yeah,
of
that's true.
being able to test for those things.
Yeah.
And of course, in Nigeria and many parts, I mean, that would be super expensive because they would have to ship it abroad and all that. So I
Right.
had to learn quickly that we couldn't afford to ask patients to do these tests. There are some basic, yes, every patient with dementia is different. We're all unique in some way or the other. However, there are also some basic things that are common across the board. And if a patient is manifesting in certain ways, there are obviously some things that they're lacking. Obviously, we know what's going on in their brains. And okay, yes, I have done an extraordinary amount of research,
Yeah.
just pouring through the literature and just figuring things out. Yes, that's part of it. But I've also done a lot of practical work where we're actually testing these different nutrients. And basically, depending on how the patient presents, we say we try this or try that. And quite frankly, Robin, I had to go to the federal government to get permission to do this. Otherwise, I would have been in trouble. Because, I mean, I didn't have, there weren't that, I didn't have the kind of covering. If I didn't have the covering of the federal government, I probably would have been in trouble because some groups might have gone after me for saying that I'm just doing illegal experimentation.
Yes. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I really wasn't. I mean, I was dealing with, these were nutrients and they were safe. So bottom line is that most people with dementia would have inflammation in their brains. I would say 99.99%. I've learned never to say absolutely. So speaking,
No, never. Nothing is 100% ever. 100% of the time, 100% is never 100%.
so we've learned how to be more conservative, right? So you got inflammation. You know that most of them are going to be lacking in things like magnesium and potassium and things like that. And if you begin to supply this, but I also deal with nutraceuticals, which are, are you familiar with that?
What is? No, I was going to ask you because I've heard that term a couple of times now. Nutraceuticals.
So we know what pharmaceuticals are. We know what nutrients or nutrient supplements are. So nutraceuticals are like in between nutrients that are made like drugs. So
Okay.
they are more specialized. They are geared towards a specific function. They are also highly bioactive or bioavailable, which means the body uses them more effectively, and many times they are very, very concentrated. Okay, so
Okay.
that's how they differ from nutrients, regular supplements. So there are certain. So I also had to do a lot of studies into this nutraceutical field. There are certain nutraceuticals that specifically switch on the brain's genes, or the brain's ability to enhance or upregulate, repair, and even removal of damaged brain cells. So if brain cells are the word is senescent cells. If the brain cells are acting like they're dead, but they're not, they're just in the way. But the brain on its own cannot get them out of the way. We can help the brain do that by giving them the nutraceuticals that would remove those brain cells and then hopefully either repair or replace them in the right way. So there are also nutrients that help to stimulate the production of new brain cells or new stem cells. There are also other nutrients that help to stimulate or enhance mitochondrial activity so the brain can produce more energy. And there's a whole host of things. And obviously, I don't just deal with the brain, because what we're finding out is that there are other systems that support the brain. And if you don't address those other systems, you would be, well, shall we say, fighting with one hand behind your back, blindfolded.
We Are One Heart is a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to bridging the gap between the needs and resources of low-income seniors and veterans. Rooted in compassion and love, our mission is to provide housing, living assistance, and access to critical resources that ensure dignity and support for the elderly in underserved communities. At the heart of We Are One Heart's work is the belief that every individual shares a common humanity, a heart connected through love and care. We are committed to creating a future that honors those who have shaped the past by offering programs and services that enhance their quality of life. For more information or to donate, visit wa1h.org. That's wa1h.org.
I mean,
well, because the body all works together, right? I mean, your circulatory system, you need good blood flow to the brain and everywhere else. You need air.
Yeah.
You've got to be able to breathe. You know, all those things go hand in hand.
Absolutely.
I think we think about the heart and the brain the most because they seem to be, you know, what keeps us going, right? That keeps us who we are.
And that's what
but
kills
it's
us.
all good.
Yeah, so most of the deaths are either strokes or heart attacks. So people, it's front and center. It's front and center. But yeah, so again, this is something that I feel we need to educate doctors on, because you mentioned the heart, the cardiovascular system, the immune system, extremely important to brain function.
Yeah.
The gut health is extremely important, not just because it's through the digestive system that you take in the nutrients that get into the body. But we now know that the guts, the digestive system, especially the colon of all things, the colon and the brain have this really tight connection. And what happens in the colon can significantly affect what happens in the brain and vice versa. As a matter of fact, when I'm treating kids with autism, like I said, I treat the whole age range from early childhood to late adulthood. And what we found out was that we couldn't get good results with kids with autism until we had addressed the digestive system, because a lot of it has to do with the gut bacteria and how digestion happens. So we had to address that first. We're finding out we have to do that even with adults with dementia as well. So that aside, then of course the hormonal system, more so for women than men, because estrogen is probably one of, if not the most powerful protective hormone for the brain. It's up there. It's top 3 or top 5. Estrogen protects the brain. Once, in some women with menopause, there's a 30% drop in estrogen. And once you have that 30% drop, some people recover from it, others don't recover as well. And so think about that. The brain was enjoying, let's say it was enjoying 90% energy production. It drops by 30%. So it drops down to 60% energy production. Remember what we said?
I was just thinking that.
So 50%. So we're getting closer and closer to the borderline. And so if people aren't aware of this, they're just going to keep on living their lives. They're just dealing with one minor discomfort. It could be minor, it could be major, but they're just living their lives and they just don't know what to do with it. But they're soldiering on. Meanwhile, these things are happening in the background, and gradually they're getting more and more into the red, and eventually they have dementia, and they're like, oh wow, we got to take care of mom. Meanwhile, we could have done a lot about it earlier on.
Yeah, I mean, and it all makes sense when you say it the way you say it, right? When you say it, it all makes sense. I guess it's just we expect. And maybe this is a Western world thing, is we just expect not only for our food to sustain us, if we're eating a balanced diet, like you said, you know, I'm getting my protein and my vegetables, and then I should be just fine. But clearly that's not that's not the case.
No,
and then we expect our doctors to give us a shot or a pill, and that's not going to be the case either.
Right. It's Unfortunately, I don't think we will ever get to the point where nutrition becomes a very strong part of our curriculum as medical doctors, medical students. So that's why we have to reach the lay people directly and say, well, listen, you, these are two different things. You take care of your health, let your doctor take care of your disease. Because most people don't realize this, but we are
Yeah.
trained to address disease.
Yeah.
We are not really trained to optimize health.
Isn't that interesting?
Most people don't realize that.
Yeah.
So they just
Yeah.
think, oh, the doctor's going to take care of my health and all that. We are not trained that way. And so lay people, and again, it has to be. I really advocate that different lay people have to. So depending on your race, your age, your sex, your station in life, your background, where you live in the world, these are all factors. Environmental factors play a key role. You need to be aware of where the vulnerabilities are in each of these different categories and what you
Yeah.
need to do to protect yourself. That's why I'm creating all these different courses. I have a course called Keeping Your Marbles. I'm working on one for
Yeah.
women specifically. I'm working on one for men, for blacks specifically. I'm working on one for veterans because veterans also have a higher risk of dementia than twice as high, as a matter of fact, than the rest of the public. So we have to let people know so they can see themselves and see where they are and where they lie and what their risks are, and therefore begin to take proactive steps. And and many of the things they can do are so simple. It's ridiculous when you think
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
how simple it is to prevent dementia, and yet how expensive it is when someone has dementia and they're going through it. And it's not just in terms of financial expense, but the emotional burden places on the family members. I have a friend his father just died from dementia, and his mom had to take care of him. But luckily, they had good insurance, and the government took care of his $14,000 a month assisted living care. I think it was full time care. And but the mother she was so stressed out taking care of him. Soon after he died, she developed leukemia. So she's now being
Oh my
treated for
gosh.
cancer now. And it's hard to say. I mean, it's hard not to say that there could have been some kind of connection between the two,
Sure.
because it's a huge burden on the immune system just taking care of
Well, they
someone.
say that being a caregiver that actually can kill the caregiver, right? Sometimes before the person that they're caring for.
I heard this crazy statistic. It says about 40% of caregivers will die before
That's
their the
that's
person.
crazy,
Yeah,
40%.
yeah,
Because it's the stress, emotional and physical. They're
yeah,
taking care of the other person, not themselves. So now they're just even their health and well-being deteriorates because everything is going to this person,
yeah.
and then yeah, I think it's a tragedy in this country and in this world right now, and it's a crisis.
Absolutely. And don't forget the whole grief, the loss of that,
Yeah.
especially if they were very close and they've lived together for many, many years. That whole grief and loss, and in some cases regret
Yeah.
and maybe guilt. Maybe I should
Why
have
am
done
I
something
here?
different.
What
Yep.
I couldn't take care of them well enough. I
Yeah.
couldn't do the right things. Why couldn't, and then they beat themselves up
Yeah. Exactly.
emotionally. So you talked about, you've got the dirty dozen, I know the non-negotiables is on your website, just the list of the things that are really non-negotiable in what you need to do to care for yourself, and keeping your marbles. How do we how do we keep everything together? And all these are on your website, and we'll put that all of that in the show notes for everyone. But kind of give us a quick, down and dirty about what each of those are.
All right. So keeping your marbles is a course that we're developing. It's almost ready, so they can just sign up to get notifications on that. And basically, it comes down to three things. What we know about people who have dementia is that they've been exposed to greater attacks over a period of time, and I use that term loosely. Things that harm or damage their brain. and we get that from the Dirty Dozen, which I'm going to come to in a minute. So they've been exposed to greater attacks. Number two, for whatever reasons, they have fewer defenses or weaker protections. Okay. And I'll explain that in a minute. And then, of course, number three is that when things begin to go wrong, they don't receive prompt, effective treatment. And so it just keeps on piling up and piling up. Maybe the doctor just says, just take this pill, or they'll say, it's not that bad yet, come in 2 years' time. Then,
or you're just getting older. That's just what happens with age.
Exactly. So keeping your marbles is just to counteract each of these. So we want to reduce the attacks. And the only way you reduce attacks is by helping you identify where the attacks are coming from.
Yeah.
And number two is that you want to strengthen the defenses. There are already defenses that your body has in place to protect itself. So we want to help you identify those defenses and help you strengthen them. We gave you a good example that estrogen is one of the things that protect your brain the most. What can we do to rebuild that estrogen levels, for example? And then number three is there are certain tests that can be done anywhere in the world. Remember, I have a third world mentality thinking, so I don't think in terms of PET scans or SPECT scans or MRI. I just don't think that way because I'm like,
it's just unavailable. So how can we do this?
How can we do this elsewhere? So there are basically things like think in terms of glucose metabolism, insulin resistance, so fasting glucose, fasting insulin, obviously vitamin D, vitamin B12, homocysteine, your hormonal profile, and I always forget one or two of them, and then certain nutrients, other nutrients in the body. Oh yeah, inflammation, understanding inflammation levels. So that's a whole bunch of stuff that I think if you test them regularly, at least once a year, and most doctors simply do not test for these, or may test for 2 or 3 of them, but it's rare where a doctor will actually.
You got to ask a doctor to test your thyroid. You got to be specific when you want them to look at your thyroid levels.
Yeah.
Because they just don't run that automatically, and especially in women, that thyroid level can go all over the place.
Yes. Mostly, it's for most people, it's low thyroid, thyroid, or suboptimal thyroid levels. So you're absolutely right about that. So
Baltimore.
Where do you live?
I'm in Dallas.
In Dallas, okay, got it.
Yes.
Yeah. You don't have people zipping by. I mean, I say that.
Well, and it's 100 degrees outside, so you're not going to hear too much. We got windows down and air conditions blowing. It's 100 degrees outside right now.
that has never stopped anybody over here. They just come out and just make a lot of noise. Anyway, so we deal with that. So that's keeping your marbles. I do most of my talk. So my when I go out and speak, it's also called keeping your marbles, where I do a 45-minute presentation, 15 minutes questions and answers, where I just introduce these concepts. Yeah. And then if people want to engage me, then I would love to do workshops where we really delve into maybe 1 or 2 of these things and really do a deep dive. So the next one is I believe it's Dementia's Dirty Dozen. So obviously there are about 12. They all start with the letter I. And these are all the different things that can lead to dementia. I always say it's never one thing. It's always a combination of 2, 3, 4, 5, however many. I hope I can remember these. So I try to. So the way I remember them is that there are insufficiencies. Then there are outright illnesses, or things that outrightly directly damage the brain. And number three are things that are imbalanced. It's not like the person is sick or anything. It's just like things are off. So inadequacies would be things like isolation. Loneliness is a really bad thing for the brain. Number 2 is insomnia. That's poor quality sleep. Then number 3, inadequacies, which are nutrients. Mainly nutrient inadequacies, but there are other things like exposure to the sun is inadequate. And then number 4 is inactivity, which means mental inactivity or physical inactivity. We're now understanding more and more that physical activity, especially strength training in people who are 50s and above, is even probably more important than just aerobic exercise. So those are the insufficiencies or inadequacies. The outright damage, so the things like illnesses, injuries, infections, and it'll come to me.
Got you on the spot.
This always happens. Then there are things like immune dysfunction, insulin resistance, intestinal dysfunction, which are gut problems, and imbalances, which is what happens in several different areas, but most especially when it comes to menopause. The problem with menopause is not just the decline in hormone levels. People tend to overlook this. It's not just a decline in hormone levels. It's actually an imbalance, a relative decline of one with regards to the other. So, for instance, both estrogen and progesterone decline in menopause. But what happens with progesterone is that its decline is even steeper than the estrogen. That imbalance can wreak havoc on several different parts of the body. As a matter of fact, they are saying, researchers are saying that many of the symptoms that we see in menopause, hot flashes, night sweats, brain fog, is a result are as a result of that imbalance, not just the fact that estrogen is low, but that imbalance. So there are some groups of thought, or some researchers who are basically treating with progesterone only, not just estrogen, but progesterone only. And progesterone, we're now finding out, is extremely important for brain function, as well as estrogen. So people don't know this; they don't realize.
No.
So obviously, I'm not an OBGYN, but I had to figure out how to address that imbalance in a third world setting. So we found nutraceuticals that can basically provide the body with the raw materials it needs to make progesterone, to make testosterone, to make estrogen. So it can, and of course, the body being as smart as it is, it can now make them in the right balance
that it needs. Because the balance that I need is going to be different than the balance somebody else needs.
Exactly. So and it doesn't require any specific tests and all that. But bottom line is, the person having night sweats, fine. If the person having problems with memory or brain fog, that's all we need to know. We don't need to do any tests.
You already know. Because it just is what it is.
It is what it is. And if it doesn't work, we try something else.
Yeah.
So that's the approach we have.
Well, I mean, I could sit here for hours and hours and ask you all these questions. So I don't think either one of us have hours and hours right now, but it's just fascinating to me that, I don't know, that it could be as simple, and you said it could be as simple as making sure you're getting supplements that we're not getting in our everyday lives.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
That could just create a whole different future for so many people.
Yep.
I mean, that's lives that, like you said, not only on the individual, but on their families and the surrounding people and their financial health and their emotional well-being and all of those things that go into what these things that we're facing as we age right now.
Mm-hmm.
And to be able to, lessen, if not eliminate, some of them.
Yep.
Just by paying attention to what our bodies need.
Yep.
That's crazy.
So, like you said, I guess that's why I'm doing this, because I'm like, I feel like a certain level of responsibility. If it's so easy and we're not letting people know, and people are suffering the way they are, and I've seen a lot of people suffer unnecessarily.
Yeah.
It's on me. It's on you.
Well, and that's it, right? If I can learn it, and if I get introduced to people like you, and I can learn it, then it's my responsibility to do within my corner of this world
right.
to put the information out there as best that I can.
Right.
And let people take what they will from it.
Yep.
But I think so many things are simple, but they're not easy.
Yep.
And I think that's, I think that becomes the barrier to it. Is it's simple to hear you say, go out in the sun a little more, get some vitamin D, make sure, your hormone levels are this, but that it's not easy to go understand it or research it, right? You're a researcher. This is what you do, and you study research, but then sometimes it's difficult for people to do that. And I think some of the things that I saw on your website and some of these things, you've already done all the research. So now it's in a place that is more easily digestible to the regular person out there.
Hopefully.
I mean, that's what you can do, right? You can put it out there and hope that people can digest it or find it.
Yeah.
So we've talked about so much. If there's something that I missed, what if somebody's listening and you just wanted to whisper in their ear one thing to get them on this path, what would that be?
Well, I get the vitamin D is probably the one thing you can do that would probably, if there's only one thing you could do, that would be my number one thing, because it affects so many aspects of brain health.
There you go, folks. You heard it here. You heard it here first. Vitamin D.
Including sleep. We didn't talk about sleep, but especially where women are concerned. Women have a much bigger problem with sleep than men do. And sleep is crucial to brain function. And vitamin D helps with sleep as well. So, for sure.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I think you've given everybody something not only to think about, but, again, gave everybody a little path to what, could be, right? And what should be, I think. And I encourage everyone, like I said, we're going to get your website up on the show notes and everywhere. And I encourage people to go and read some of that and reach out to you and your staff to go a little deeper on this.
That would be great. I appreciate you doing that.
So, all right, folks. Well, all I can do is get you started. I can't get you to do it, but I'm going to say, go acknowledge that this could be for you, and just go and explore it a little bit to see what it can do for you, your loved ones, as we move on into these future years. We're in a crisis in this country right now with mental and emotional health, and these are some things that can help improve that for you and your loved ones. So I just want to say thank you, Dr. David, for joining us today. And thank you for tuning in to Relax, I Got This, Embracing Life After 60. Make sure you hit that like and share, and we'll see you next time. Thank you for tuning in to Embracing Life After 60 with me, Robin McCoy. This podcast is produced by Jen Sariano with special thanks to the amazing team at Relax, I Got This. You can find more episodes on YouTube and wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, follow, and share to help us spread the message. Until next time, keep embracing life to the fullest.